Don't try to be an expert. Don't try to predict every move, every hour, every day.
तो मेहनत करनी पड़ती है क्योंकि आपको कुछ भी नहीं मालूम है।
अगर सबसे बड़ी लर्निंग ये है वो है कि हिम्मत मत हारो।
India grows at night, ladies and gentlemen.
If necessary is, how much dividend do we get?
Many a times we make decisions out of our heart because we are human beings.
Just not get caught up in the momentum.
But I believe India is still, it's a paradise for stock picking.
See, Ramesh, 20, I don't think for a good trader, I think we don't initiate more than 40% of trades which are right. Right, suppose I'm bullish, say on XYZ stock. Now I buy that stock. If it goes up, it's an indication of the fact that I'm right. And we do what I call is pyramiding. I buy stock at 100, I buy more at 105, I buy more at 110. So what are markets, what is trading? It's basically momentum. So you play momentum. So if the market is rising, its momentum is upwards. So you buy on the rise. If markets are going down, you sell on the fall. And this I don't mind. I don't indicate in long-term trends and medium-term trends and short-term trends. This applies to short-term trends, medium-term trends, and long-term trends.
So you should never average a losing trading position.
Well, at your own cost. Never. At least I never do it.
That's a huge mistake, isn't it?
Unless and until we believe, suppose I buy a stock at 90 and I feel it's going to have a big upside, and the fall is 4-5%, I might average.
Or temporary.
But as a rule in trading, I will never ever average.
एक तो पहली बात क्या है, देखिए आदमी का स्टार्ट कहाँ, एक तो हम तो सुपर जीरो है चालू करने में, मतलब शुरू में कुछ नहीं था तो हमको पूरा सीखना था। घर में फार्मिंग थी तो वहाँ पर से कोई ऐसा पुरखौती, हमको कोई नॉलेज नहीं था स्टॉक मार्केट का, कोई बैलेंस नहीं आता था घर में, कोई बिजनेस का बातचीत नहीं होता था, सो एकदम कोरा था।
अच्छा, पूरा
एकदम कोई माइंड में
किसान और खेती वाला मामला।
हाँ एकदम।
अच्छा।
तो अपने यहाँ मुंबई में आया, पहली बार ऑडिट वर्क किए तो मानो पड़ा सेंचुरी में समझ में आया, प्रीमियर ऑटोमोबाइल में समझ में आया कि इसके शेयर भी चलते हैं, वहाँ के फाइनेंस डिपार्टमेंट वाले लगे हुए थे काम पे, तो धीरे धीरे समझ में आते गया। फिर वो सीए में बैलेंस शीट पढ़ो ना
जी,
तो समझ में आता। तो क्या है कि आप जीरो से चालू करो ना तो एक बहुत उसका एक अलग तजुर्बा है। हर चीज़ सीखना है आपको, हर चीज़ सीखना है कि मतलब बैलेंस शीट कहाँ से लाना उसको भी सीखने का है, बैलेंस शीट को पढ़ना कैसे, उसको इंटरप्रेट कैसे करना और उसके बेसिस पे कितना खरीदना। अच्छा, पैसे आपका है नहीं, जीरो मल्टीप्लाइड बाय एनीथिंग इज जीरो, तो आप कितना बड़ा ज्ञान ले आओ, लेकिन आपके पास स्टार्टिंग कैपिटल नहीं है तो आप कहाँ तक आगे बढ़ोगे। तो उसी कारण से आपको समय ज़्यादा लग जाता है। और उसमें शायद गरीबी भी बहुत ज़्यादा थी कि मतलब सैलरी भी कितना मिलता था, 1-2 लाख रुपया साल का मिलता था, तो बचेगा कितना, 25-50 हज़ार रुपया। अभी तो अच्छे बच्चों को 25-50 लाख रुपए स्टार्टिंग मिलती है।
राइट।
तो यदि वही उम्र में 25-27 साल की उम्र में जो ब्राइट बच्चे हैं जिनको शेयर बाजार में करियर बनाना है, वो तो पहले साल ही 10 लाख रुपए रहेगा उनके पास में, जो हमारे पास 10 लाख रुपए 5 साल के कमाई करने के बाद आया होगा। तो एक तो मतलब आप कितने पैसे से चालू करते हो और उसके ऊपर कितना आप मेहनत करते हो। मेहनत तो बहुत करनी पड़ती है शुरू में, मतलब बेतोड़ मेहनत करनी पड़ती है क्योंकि आपको कुछ भी नहीं मालूम है। और सीखते कैसे हो आप, जैसे जैसे आपको मार पड़ती है, समझे ना, मार पड़ने सीखते हो और जो बढ़ता है जहाँ सही होते हो वहाँ पर डबल ट्रिपल भी होता है, तो उससे आपको एक लालच भी बढ़ती है, डर भी आता है, लालच भी आती है। और वो फिर वो डर, अच्छा क्या होता है, जैसे जैसे आपको कॉर्पस बढ़ते गया, आपका पोर्टफोलियो बढ़ते गया, अब जैसे हजारों करोड़ हम चला रहे हैं तो इसमें लॉस भी मतलब छोटा से छोटा लॉस भी 200-400 करोड़ रुपये हो जाता है। अब उस समय छोटा पैसा मतलब लाख रुपए में लॉस भी हो तो क्या 2-4-5 हज़ार रुपये का लॉस होता था। तो क्या है जैसे जैसे, तो अब क्या है, अब लॉस करने की हिम्मत खत्म होती जा रही है क्योंकि अब लॉस का साइज बड़ा होता है। तो अब हम ऐसे देख रहे हैं कि एकदम फुल लॉस मत हो। यदि लॉस नहीं लेंगे आप तो प्रॉफिट भी थोड़ा कम ही होगा।
करेक्ट।
They say that you were lucky, Ramesh. You came to India when India was in 89, index was 800, today is 40,000. You're lucky you made so much money out there. Do we have the same opportunities that you people had? You were the lucky generation in a manner of speaking. But here's what I want to present to you. Since I came in 89, this is what has happened in India, all right? Mrs. Gandhi assassinated, Mandal riots, Rajiv Gandhi assassinated, India pledges gold to IMF, economic liberalization happened, the bomb blast happened at the BSC, nuclear tests happened, Kargil happened, Y2K happened, technology meltdown, and here's the other counterparts that happened. including in the last few years, Demon, GST, NBFC trouble, okay? If you were an astrologer and you told me in 1988 when I was coming to India, that Ramesh, you're going to India, but remember all these things are going to happen, okay? All these things, you know, India will pledge its gold to the IMF, a global meltdown will happen. I may not have come to India, I would have been scared, right? But India grows at night, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the fact. The index has gone from when I told you, came back at 800 to more 40,000 today. It was 1979 100, so from that base, 40 years, it's almost gone up 400x, which is a compound annual growth rate of 16% without dividends. That's the most important thing to remember, without dividends. If we include dividends, it'll be great. And as I always said, what we were lucky in was this. Let me first ask you a question. Suppose you're watching a basketball game, right, between two teams. And one team had only 7-footers and one team had 5-footers. But you knew nothing else. Which team would you bet on? 7-footers, right? Because they're going to probably make more baskets than the 5-footers, right? We had the advantage of the 7-footers. What was the advantage we had? Mr. Chidambaram, unfortunately, with deep regrets, he's in jail right now. But he did Dream Budget in 98, which did two things which have dramatically changed the course of economic history of the stock market. He made long-term capital gains tax-free, and he abolished the dividend on taxes. So wealth could compound for long periods without any tax consequence on them. We paid STT, let's not get that right. We did pay, anytime we got in and out of stocks, we paid STT out there. So we contributed a lot to STT. But if you didn't trade, people like me who don't trade, who buy and invest quality businesses that we hope will go over a period of time, could build our wealth without interference from the tax authorities. And that helped the stock exchange to great heights. So people ask me that, well, we don't have the advantage right now of being a 7-footer team. This is what I'd like to say. The tax applies only if you sell your investments.
अगर सबसे बड़ी लर्निंग ये है वो है कि हिम्मत मत हारो.
अच्छा.
कितने बार लगा कि अब तो सब खत्म हो गया लगता है ऐसा. लेकिन फिर ये वैसा है जो एक नैटवेस्ट ट्रॉफी में आपको याद है मोहम्मद कैफ और युवराज सिंह ने गेम टाल दिया था.
क्या बात है. हाँ.
तो मुझे लगता है बाजार हर 2 साल बाद आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी देता है कि आप युवराज सिंह जैसा काम कर सकते हो.
वही जब आपके कोलकाता के दादा कैप्टन थे, उन्होंने शर्ट उतार कर हवा में घुमाई थी.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. तो ये पर्सनली बोलता हूँ, हर 2 साल 1.5 साल 2.5 साल में जब वो गिरावट आती है तो लगता है दुनिया खत्म हो रही है. उस समय अपने आप से भी आप क्वेश्चन करते हैं, प्रश्न करते हैं कि ये करना क्या ठीक है. सब बेच दो, FD कर दो, आराम से बैठो, सुबह उठो, 4 बजे उठो, निकी देखो, रात को सो, डाव को सुला कर सोते हैं और सुबह निकी को हम लोग जगाते हैं. तो ये जिंदगी उस समय लगती है बड़ी कठिन है. लेकिन जिंदगी में कोई भी चीज फ्री में नहीं मिलता है. आप इतने पैशनेट जब बाजार के लिए हो जाते हैं तो आप फिर उसके साथ लग जाते हैं, इन द सेंस कि इसलिए नहीं कि आपका घाटा हो रहा है, नफा हो रहा है, बट आप छोड़ते नहीं है. तो 2 चीजें हैं, एक है हिम्मत नहीं हारनी और ये है, और दूसरा आपको बाजार से बहुत प्यार करना पड़ेगा.
सही बात है.
मतलब मुझे अगर आप बोले तो बाजार से ज्यादा, पैसे से ज्यादा नहीं, बाजार से ज्यादा मेरे लिए कुछ नहीं है. और वो मैं तो कितने को बोलता हूँ कि इट लुक्स लाइक माई हार्ट बीट्स ऑन द स्क्रीन.
वंडरफुल.
जो दिल है वो स्क्रीन पे धड़कता है. तो अपना दिल
के मूवमेंट के साथ,
हाँ, अपना दिल जो है वो स्क्रीन पे देखना जरूरी है.
They have to look at, the 4 things. Now, number 1 is, lease capital expenditure. Number 2, is, since there is lease capital expenditure, there is no borrowings. That means, there are no future costs that are still not provided for. And number 3 is, the return on capital employed should not be less than 25%. And then it adds to the 4th thing, that these companies give a big chunk of their earnings as a dividend. Now let's look at this way. Dow has compounded at 5% in last 100 years. But the good dividend paying companies have done the other way. They have done, 8.5%. So dividends are more important. It's real cash flow in the hands of the shareholders. always what you call innovations in form of bonus. Bonus is nothing else but an IOU given for the what you call for the accrued expenses still not incurred.
Right.
So what is necessary is, you know, how much dividend do we get? Is the dividend compounding? There have been some companies here where the compounding of dividend has been as high as 50%.
Which is laying a lot of importance on how people make decisions. Now, we as human beings have a mind as well as a heart, and normally we are supposed to make decisions by our rational mind, but many a times we make decisions out of our heart because we are human beings, and when we make those decisions out of our heart, they may not be necessarily in our financial interest, and that's why we have many smart people making big money mistakes. That's what behavioral finance is all about.
You just said it, we make a big money mistake also. Why it's necessary to understand investors' the emotional biases and in making the investment decisions? How does it impact?
It's important to make this, make one understand one's own biases as well as understand the biases of others. Because when you know others' biases, it helps you to benefit from them. And when you know your own bias, it helps you not to make those mistakes. And these behavioral biases come in very different forms. But just understanding the stock markets by only looking at what the company is doing and what analysts are saying is not going to get you anywhere. Because most of the time, the analysts and all, they are talking what all others are talking. And that's why in a bull market, you find that every time they think everyone is talking about buying stocks, and in a bear market everyone starts about selling stocks. Actually, if you have to be a good investor, you have to do opposite of what others are doing. In bad markets, when the market stock prices are down, that's the time you should be buying, not when everyone is buying. And the unique thing about investors is they find the stock more risky when nobody is buying and when the prices are low, and they find it less risky when everyone is buying and when the prices are high. I think that is the first anomaly which all investors should understand, that you make money when you buy low and sell high, not when you buy high and sell low.
That's the most important.
To just not get caught up in the momentum. The shop I had worked in was very much of a more value-oriented shop. And somehow, because of the hype around the internet in the Western world, as I came back, had this sort of success, as it were. The first deal we did was Bazi.com, which went from a $2 million valuation to a $60 million valuation. In 6 months, we were geniuses. So somehow we felt like we had the formula. Didn't take a dime out though, and effectively ended up destroying capital for investors. So it was a harsh wake-up call during a first fund, but a very important lesson because it allowed me to pivot, really reflect and figure out what I was good at, where I wanted to be long-term.
But I strongly feel if rupee remains stable, and if you can make 15 to 20% CAGR for next 5 years or 10 years, it is amazing. I mean, rupee being stable, and I expect it to be so.
Okay.
And I won't be surprised, stock pickers making 30 and 40% CAGR for next many years.
Next many years.
Yeah.
It's going to be that
but
kind
an
of
average
market.
investor through mutual fund, through a smart mutual fund or a portfolio management, should be happy with 15 to 20% CAGR. But I always aspire to have much more. And every year may not be the same. There could be years, we were around 35% down in 2008-9.
Yeah.
Next year it was 170% up, 9-10. So those things happens. It's not only to me, everybody it happens. But I believe India is still, it's a paradise for stock picking. We are nowhere near the top, and we have a long way to go. Because as I told earlier, we are at an inflection point for the equity markets and an inflection point for Indian economy. And this is not just an inflection point; it's a historic inflection point. See, there are fundamental factors for that. There are technical factors. You know the fundamental factors. Yeah. The way the political management of the economy is changing dramatically with the long-term vision and huge. Every department, railways or shipping, the infrastructure, road, they are talking big numbers, unheard about numbers, 1 lakh crores, 5 lakh crores kind of thing. And it is not just bogus. They all are logically and reasonably talking, because India is huge. We should not underestimate India. We have huge potential. So it happens only when we think big. So the current regime, I feel their style of thinking big and dreaming big, some of them may be not achievable, but let us dream. Then only things start working. So looking at that, fundamentally we are at a historic inflection point on a fundamental basis, as I told.